So, let's talk about something called the law of symmetry. The law of symmetry. Now, you may ask, what is the law of symmetry? Well, if you look at nature, right? Look at human beings, look at animals, what do you notice? The first thing you notice is that they are symmetrical. One half of the human body is symmetrical with the other half, right? And the same with animals. You have two eyes, right? A left eye and a right eye. You have the nostrils, right? Left nostril, right nostril. You have teeth, right? And pretty much the same, the same principle. And the same applies to animals as well. And when you look around at nature, you notice there is a lot of symmetry. I mean, obviously trees are not symmetrical, right? But rows of lilies are somewhat symmetrical, So, if you look at human beings, if we look at what human beings have created and invented, for example, automobiles, aeroplanes, and stuff like that, you notice that this law of symmetry is in effect, so to speak, right? And there's almost this need to balance two sides of the same coin, if you want to call it that, because symmetry is two sides of the same coin, really, right? So, you have the right side, you have the left side. For example, the scales of justice, right, has to be balanced, right? It has to be objective, right? With no, interests that would sway its decision, for example, okay? No ulterior motives. The scales of justice must be balanced and must not be swayed by, for example, finances or bribes, right? And you see the same principle apply in the arena of, say, for example, politics or race, right? You think of the whole dichotomy between black and white, the need to balance the two, right? If white people are seen as being too privileged, there needs to be some amends made to ensure that black people enjoy the same type of, privileges. So there is this two sides of the same coin, this law of symmetry at work in so many different avenues in life, It's quite interesting, in fact, how it underpins the very way we see the world. You've got the good cop, you've got the bad cop, right? The two sides of the same coin, really. It's symmetry again, Two halves coming together, sometimes in harmony, and sometimes fractious and chaotic at the points of intersection. So, when we can understand what this law of symmetry is, which we are getting to understanding, we understand that a lot of things we do are subconscious impulses, subconscious urges. They need to balance two things, The whole concept of day and night, of left and right, For example, in politics, you have Democrats, you have got Republicans, right? Symmetry. Two opposites coming together to form a unified whole. In other words, the American political system, right? Just as two halves of the human body are put together to form a human being, you have a left half and a right half. The same principle applies in so many different fields, whether it's politics or whether it's science or whether it's history. There always has to be some type of balance. The right part has to balance in some way with the right. Anything that's asymmetrical, points to some sort of dysfunction in people's minds. It's like the seesaw is not level. One part is down, the other part is up. And there's some sort of imbalance because one is heavier than the other, and there's a need to correct this, even if, obviously it's not a pressing need. Nevertheless, it presents itself as some sort of, quagmire or dilemma to be overcome. Yeah, you have rich people, you have poor people, right? But the need to create equality for everyone is part of this whole law of symmetry, that the haves should be on a par with the have-nots, Just as one part of the human body mirrors the other half of the human body, there has to be this congruity, right, between two halves. And in a way, it's not fully disseminated. People don't expressly refer to that law. But the need, again, to balance two halves and to create two halves to every single scenario, right? Whether it's poverty and wealth, whether it's black or white, If there was one phenomenon that existed, people will try and find the antithesis of it, right? And by doing so, they'll be following the laws of symmetry. So anyway, that's my brief take on it. It's like an implicit law. It's not explicit, but it governs the way we think, the way we organize our world, and the way we address our problems. Thanks.